Hello there, and welcome to another one of these weekly reflections on various aspects of English language teaching. My name's Hugh Della, and I'm one of the co-founders of Lexical Lab and co-authors of Outcomes, Innovations and the Teaching Lexically methodology book. Today, what I want to talk about is a question I've been asked a few times actually during the course of this year. And I guess it stems from this particular book here. Some of you may be aware of this book, The Lexical Approach by Michael Lewis, originally published by LTP, Language Teaching Publications, back in 1993, I think. And one of the central claims that Michael makes in this book is this idea that language is not lexicalised grammar, rather it is grammaticalised lexis. I don't know about you, but that's the kind of sentence that when I first read it, it worries me and it stresses me. And I remember first reading the Lexical Approach when I was doing my Delta back in 1995. And I literally used to wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, wondering which one was it again? Was it lexicalised grammar or grammaticalised lexis? What does it all mean? The way I've come to think about this over the intervening years since then can be neatly illustrated, I guess, by thinking about conversations you often hear when you're out and about around London, where you get people who basically speak sort of A0 or A1 level English, trying to negotiate transactions in shops. The other day, for example, I was in a coffee shop in the centre of London, and a place I go to quite often, Portuguese run, London Portuguese run. And there was a young Japanese lad in there, and he was trying to order a coffee. And he basically said, I want a cappuccino. How much cost? Okay. And from that, he got his cappuccino and he paid his £2.20 or however much it was. And I think what drives our communication, what allows us to basically transmit messages primarily is lexis. So in this instance, what the guy had was very minimal. It was basically I want cappuccino, how much cost? And with those ungrammaticalised pieces of vocabulary, he was able to convey his meaning. One of the things that happens as you get better in a foreign language is you move beyond this simple kind of stringing together of connected items of vocabulary to express meanings, and you learn to grammar them. So, hopefully in a year or so, he might be able to come back to that particular coffee bar and say, hi, can I get a cappuccino, please? Sorry, how much is that? How much does that cost? And in a sense, the message is basically the same. The communicative transaction's basically the same. What's happened in the intervening time is he's learned to grammar the vocabulary that he already had. And I think what Michael's basically suggesting is that it's actually vocabulary that drives our communication. It's vocabulary that comes to our minds first and foremost. And what then happens is we learn or we develop or we possess already the grammar which connects itself to those particular words, rather than the other way of thinking about things, which is we have these grammatical structures, whether you think of those as present perfect or past perfect simple or just little patterns within the language, and we're then somehow able to drop words into those things to make this infinite variety of sentences. Obviously, this does happen, okay? I mean, there is obviously such a thing as grammar, and we do use grammar to produce new sentences, but possibly that's not the way we store and process and drive communication, and possibly things are more limited than maybe we think. Just to give one more case in point, I was teaching earlier this year and the expression, there's no pleasing some people, came up, okay? One of the guys I teach is a Polish guy who works in a butcher's shop, and he was complaining about some of his customers, and I said, yeah, I know what you mean, Pavel. You mean there's no pleasing people, no pleasing some people. And he liked this expression, found it quite useful. One of my other students almost immediately said, so can I say there's no angering some people? okay? Or there's no annoying some people. Now, logically, if the language was just a set of structural patterns that you could drop words into, either of those sentences should be possible. I've never heard any of those other sentences. I've only ever heard there's no pleasing some people. And although it should be possible to drop vocabulary in to kind of lexicalize that particular little piece of grammar, if you like, it just doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen because that hasn't been socially sanctioned. That's not what the wider language using community does. So hopefully that's given you at least some further thought on the issue of language primarily being grammaticalised lexis, not lexicalised grammar. Thank you.